In the misty mountains of Japan, there lived an old tea master named Takashi. His tea house was legendary not for its grandeur, but for the peace it brought to those who visited. For 60 years, he had served tea to emperors and peasants alike, treating each with the same careful attention. But Takashi was growing old, and he needed to find someone to carry on his legacy. Many young apprentices came to learn from him, but none stayed longer than a few months. They all wanted to master the art quickly, to become famous tea masters themselves. Then came May, a young woman who had walked for 7 days to reach his tea house. Unlike the others, she didn't speak of her ambitions or her dreams of mastery. She simply asked,
"May I learn from you?"
Takashi accepted her as his student, but his methods were strange. For 3 months, he only allowed her to clean the tea house. No touching the tea leaves, no handling the precious ceramics, just sweeping and cleaning. Many visitors would ask May,
"Why do you stay? He's not teaching you anything about tea."
but May would smile and continue her work. After 3 months of perfect cleaning, Takashi allowed her to begin preparing the water for tea. For another 3 months, that was her only task, heating water to the perfect temperature. No more, no less. The other villagers began to whisper.
"The old master has lost his mind. He's wasting her time."
Some even offered to teach May themselves, promising faster results. But May noticed something changing within herself. In the sound of water beginning to boil, she heard music. In the rising steam, she saw dancing spirits. The repetition hadn't made her bored, it had made her aware. A year passed this way, with Takashi gradually introducing each element of the tea ceremony to May. While others would have rushed through the learning in weeks, May spent months on each small detail. One misty morning, a wealthy merchant arrived at the tea house. He was famous for his impatience and his harsh judgments. He had heard of Takashi's fame and demanded to be served. Takashi was ill that day, and for the first time, he asked May to perform the ceremony. The merchant scoffed when he saw a young woman preparing his tea, but he sat down anyway. May began the ceremony just as she had practiced thousands of times. Each movement was unhurried, each gesture deliberate. The merchant found himself growing quiet, then still, then peaceful. When she finally presented him with the tea, tears were rolling down his face.
"I came here seeking the perfect cup of tea,"
He said.
"but instead, I found the peace I've been chasing all my life."
That evening, Takashi called May to his room. His voice was weak, but his eyes were bright.
"Do you understand now?"
He said.
"Why we spent so long on each simple task?"
May nodded slowly.
The tea ceremony was never about the tea.
She replied.
It was about finding infinity in each moment, about being so present that time itself slows down.
Takashi smiled and said,
"You are ready, not because you have mastered tea, but because you have learned to master yourself."
The wealthy merchant became a regular visitor to May's tea house. He once asked her how long it would take him to learn the ceremony himself. She smiled and replied,
How long does it take for a flower to bloom? It takes as long as it takes. The joy is in the growing.
Sometimes, dear friend, the fastest way forward is to slow down. In our rush to master life, we forget to live it. Just as May found infinity in a simple cup of tea, each story here carries a spark of wisdom waiting to illuminate your path. Click the like and subscribe button to begin your journey.